Hey, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing a very special flight with you, where I had the entire section of a Singapore Airlines A350 business class cabin to myself on my recent journey between Jakarta Soekarno Hatta Airport and Singapore Changi Airport in June 2025. I'm going to be reviewing the pre-flight experience, including the lounge beforehand and the overall airport experience. And once we get on the plane, I'm going to be reviewing the seat, the cabin, which I had entirely to myself, the facilities, and of course, the food, the drink, and the service. Our flight today from Jakarta to Singapore clocks in at just over 900 kilometers and takes 1 hour, making it the second shortest flight on the Singapore Airlines network after the Kuala Lumpur route. Somebody was dropping me off at the airport, so I didn't take any footage pre-immigration, but today we're at Jakarta Terminal 3, which is the newest and most modern terminal. Immigration was a breeze as I was able to use the electronic immigration gates. I was through in about 2 minutes. For business class passengers, Singapore Airlines uses the Sapphire Plaza Premium Lounge, which, as I've explained before, is a slightly odd concept. You walk into the main Plaza Premium Lounge, and then at the end, you see a separate section just for Singapore Airlines passengers, which is a slightly unusual lounge within a lounge, but it's a good lounge. I've reviewed this lounge in full in a separate video, which I've linked at the end of this one, but for the purposes of this video, the lounge is decent. There are numerous hot and cold food options, and the drink selection is not too bad either. As I was flying on the last Singapore Airlines flight of the day from Jakarta, and as I mentioned earlier, I had the entire cabin to myself, it got very quiet. I didn't stay here for long and just got a small plate of food and a few Diet Cokes. The food was hot and flavoursome, no complaints. I believe looking at the video, I also got a coffee. I don't remember doing that so late, but the video doesn't lie. After a brief visit to the lounge, I made my way over to gate number 6. Which is right next to the lounge at gate 7, where we were departing from today. I made my way to my seat and got settled into it. It was at this point that the crew came round to inform me I was the only passenger in the cabin for this flight. Apparently, the last flight of the day is not that popular, and therefore I had it entirely to myself. Needless to say, because of this, the service was excellent, even by Singapore Airlines standards, which is already very high. Hey, if you're enjoying the video, please subscribe. Taking a look around the seat was controlled by these electronic buttons, which were intuitive and easy to understand, and the in-flight entertainment was controlled by this very high-tech digital remote. There is a really wide seat table to the right of the seat, with a separate storage compartment with a universal power socket, and that's where the headphones and the menu are kept. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I don't understand the design of this seat. The seat table on the side is so wide relative to the seat, which itself is a little bit cramped. I'd really like to meet the person that designed it and just ask them why. I was pleased to see, however, that post-COVID, Singapore Airlines has returned to paper menus. The menu for our dinner tonight is on the right. I chose the Indonesian fish, and I will be reviewing the entire food service later in the video. Despite the flight being only 1 hour in length, Singapore Airlines has an on-flight bar which rivals many long-haul business class flights. There's champagne, various white wines, a few red wines, and a fortified wine as well. This is seriously impressive for a flight of this length. After about 20 minutes on board, we began our pushback from the gate, and it was at this point the crew played the iconic safety video.
As the safety equipment on this aircraft may differ from that on other aircraft, please give us your attention as we bring you through this important safety briefing and on a journey through Singapore. In front of you for more information. On behalf of Singapore Airlines, we hope you have a great time on board as well as in Singapore or anywhere else in the world we take you.
I love that safety video, and by the time it was finished, we were nearly at the runway. The journey to the runway took about 10 minutes, and then we were ready to take off. I'll speed this bit up so as not to bore you. Apologies for the lighting. I forgot to shoot the headphone footage whilst we were on the ground. Needless to say, there was Singapore Airlines' own brand headphones, padded, noise cancelling, and very comfortable. As this was a short flight, the crew sprang into action and served the dinner about 10 minutes after takeoff. Because it was such a short flight, dinner was served with all 3 courses on one tray at the same time, which was understandable. For starter, we had a tuna Caesar salad, which came with a separate pot of Caesar dressing so you could add it to taste. This was tasty. The tuna was fresh and perfectly seared, and the Caesar dressing had just the right amount of creaminess. For the main course, I had the Indonesian fish served in a turmeric sauce. This tasted a lot better than it looked, with the fish being perfectly cooked and the sauce very tasty. The only complaint I would have is that the portion of fish was absolutely tiny, barely bigger than a matchbox. For dessert, we had the cheesecake. This was probably the low point of the meal. It wasn't the best cheesecake I've ever had. It was kind of soft and not very cheesy. Nothing bad, and a nice way to round off the meal, but definitely the low point. The meal was served with 2 pieces of Singapore Airlines signature garlic bread, to which I added the Caesar dressing. If you've never had garlic bread with Caesar dressing before, I suggest you give it a go. It's an unexpectedly good combination. Not the healthiest, but for taste, it was top-notch. Having finished my meal, I went to the toilets to check out the facilities, and I've got to say, these are probably the nicest aeroplane toilets I've seen in a long while. They must have been refurbished compared to some of the older planes. Not only are they a decent size with plenty of room to move around, but the finish and the detailing, including the wood on the panelling, is of a really high quality. The toilets also feature premium amenities in the form of Penhaligon's toiletries. You get a hand lotion, a facial mist, and an eau de toilette spray. For those of you that don't know, Penhaligon's is a high-end London brand, so this is a really premium product to have in the toilets of a plane. Not only this, but there is a separate drawer stocked full of every amenity you could need for a short flight. Toothbrushes, shavers, shaving cream, combs, literally everything you need is in here. The toilets were also kept spotlessly clean. I saw the crew popping in to give them a clean, even on a 1-hour flight. That's incredible. Having finished my meal and checked out the toilets, I came back to my seat and waited to land. I took one more video of the cabin to show just how empty it was. Just like that, the captain came on the intercom to announce we were beginning our descent into Singapore, and I got some great views out of a window onto the surrounding islands. At one point, I had to do a double take because it looked like we were flying right past Changi Airport, and we were, because instead of approaching directly onto the runway, we were effectively going to overshoot it and turn around. But it gave me this incredible view of Singapore by night, including all of the ships and boats moored down below. As usual, I will speed up the landing so as not to bore you. The taxi to the gate took about 10 minutes and we were ready to deplane very quickly. In no time at all and slightly ahead of schedule, I got off into Singapore Changi Airport Terminal 3. For some reason, we seemed to park at a very far away gate, and I had what seemed like a 10-minute walk to immigration, which is very far by Changi standards. Thankfully, there were moving walkways all along the route to speed it up. After my 10-minute walk, I arrived at immigration, which, as usual for Singapore, had precisely 0 queue, and I was through it in a minute. As I waited for my bags, I remarked at just what a good job Changi Airport does of making the arrival experience and first impression to the country a good one. I mean, look at this. It puts other airports to shame. In all of about 5 minutes, I had collected my bag and was in my car on the way back to my apartment. All in all, this was an excellent flight. The Singapore Airlines regional business class product is great, with a full lie-flat seat, even if I did have some questions about the proportions. The lounge beforehand was great to stop in and get a little bit of food before the flight, and it was nice that they didn't just use the standard priority pass lounge and in fact carved out a section just for Singapore Airlines passengers. There were a number of tasty hot dishes available with an Indonesian flavour, allowing you to get a sample of local cuisine. Whilst the wine selection wasn't too great, it was large enough that you could have a drink before your flight. And the flight itself was something truly unique. I've had the cabin all to myself in first class before, but never in business class, and this was noted by the crew, and I received absolutely top-notch service throughout. Whilst the food and drink wasn't the full Singapore Airlines business class experience, receiving a free course meal on a flight that's barely an hour puts so many airlines to shame. On certain American airlines, you'd be lucky to get a small sandwich, if indeed anything at all, on a flight of this length. And of course, the arrival into Changi Airport was absolutely flawless. This was one of the longer times it's taken me to get from the plane to the taxi, and yet even then, we're talking barely 20 minutes, including collecting a checked-in bag. Look, I know some of you will say that flying business class is not needed for a 1-hour flight from Jakarta, and you'd be absolutely correct. I don't disagree with you in the slightest. However, if you have some air miles to burn, or you're a crazy rich Asian, this is a very nice way to do the journey, and I enjoyed it a lot. I've flown it before, and I will fly it again.